Hello MATLAB programmers. Today I'm going to show you how to create a graphical user interface, and we're going to use the command guide to help us create a graphical user interface. When you type in guide, we're going to get a pop-up and it's going to say create a new GUI, and GUI is short for graphical user interface. Well, also we could open an existing GUI if there was another project we had already been working on. For today I'll create a blank GUI. And I'll get this pop-up, and on the left side I've got different widgets that I could add to the GUI, like a push button, radio button, an editable text box, we've got a slider, a checkbox, static text, so lots of different widgets here that we could choose from. I'm going to, for my first GUI, start with a push button, and I'm going to drag it over here. And everything is configurable. We can change the size of this by using the resize handles that are outlining this widget. If we double click on the button, then a pop-up of properties comes up. The first property I see is the background color. So if I don't want my button to be just a plain old gray color, I can choose the spilling paint bucket and pick a different color for my button. If that font size is too small, I can go down to this font size property and change that font size to something that's bigger. And that was so big I need to resize my button. We could change the font style. And then I'm going to go down to the string property, and that corresponds to the actual text that's on the button. So if I want this to say click here, I'll change the string property. And then last but not least, probably the most important property that we're going to need to change is the tag property. I'm going to change this tag to my first button. So make sure that you've got uppercase M and F and B and there's no spaces. So this is going to end up being something that we reference inside of our code when we want to know how many times someone's clicked on the button. So make sure that exactly matches what you see up here. And then let's try another property, the static text, which looks like just TXT in a box over here with all the widgets. I'm going to drag that over as well and resize that. And for that one, I'm going to change a few of the properties. I'm going to change the background color on this, and I'm going to pick pink as one of my favorite colors. I'm going to change the font size. Let's do 25 as well. Let's change the string property. So instead it says, let's do total clicks equals 0. So we'll keep track of how many times someone has clicked on the button. At the very beginning when we first start the program, nobody's clicked on the button. And the most important property is that tag property. I'm going to change it to my first text. Okay, the whole background of my graphical user interface right now is this gray color. If I want something more exciting, I can change the color of this whole background. So as you're clicking on the widgets, you'll see that they are highlighted and you've got these resize handles. Click on the background of the whole widget and you can pick your favorite color for the background color of the GUI. So from here I'm going to go ahead and hit save and pick a place to save this to, and I'm going to call this my first GUI. And you might notice it's saving as a FIG, a figure, and you might think this is a MATLAB program, like why am I saving it as a figure? With these GUIs you're going to have a MATLAB, a .m file, and a figure that go together. So this is exactly what we should see at this point. Hit save. And then it generates some MATLAB code for us. Remember when I was saying that it was very important to have the tags exactly match my first text, my first button? Well, the reason is that it's going to use those tags as part of the function name. So if someone clicks on the button, which we had the tag of my first button, then this function, my first button callback, is the function that is going to run anytime someone clicks on a button. So I've got some code that I've put together that we can put inside of this function, and I'll just paste that in there. And it's not very many lines of code. It sets up a persistent variable count. The persistent variable will not disappear or be reset, so it's going to stick around for the life of the program. Every time we run the function, it's going to be looking at the same count that we had last time. It's not going to reset it. If it's empty, if it's the first time we've ever called this function, we'll set the count to 0. Otherwise, increment the count by 1. This right here, the sprintf command, so we have used fprintf in class, and we've seen that you can combine strings with things that are in variables, and like we talked about how we could put pi along with a string using some kind of syntax like this, saying substitute in place of the %f the variable pi. So that's the same thing that I'm doing right here, only instead of fprintf, it's sprintf. And what sprintf does, I'll use that same pi example, is that instead of printing to the screen, sprintf will print to a string, like a variable. So I'm going to set up a string equal to something, and we'll have a new variable that's a combination of text along with a variable. And in this example, it'll be total clicks along with the variable count, which we're incrementing every time someone clicks the button. And where do we want to set this string as the text? Well, we're using the myFirstText, which was that static text box, and setting up the string property to be this new information of how many times this button was clicked. So this is all the code that you have to add. Then we go ahead and hit run, and it's going to open up your graphical user interface. Every time you click on the button, we will update this static text box saying total clicks is equal to and the new number. All right, that was your first GUI. More GUI videos to come.